It's a bookshelf tour day. I filmed this in my old apartment before I moved out, and now I'm getting like nostalgic and emotional for my old bookshelves in my old apartment as I'm editing this. But anyway, I hope you enjoy watching for some chaotic organization. Hi, okay, I thought it would be fun to do a bookshelf tour because I realized I have all of these shelves and I have never ever done a tour of these. And of course I'm doing the bookshelf tour like the week before I move out of my apartment, so there's that. Anyway, let's get into it. Here is the overview of the shelves. It is just a wall of bookshelves. I decided to go with the shorter ones. These are just the Billy bookshelves from IKEA because I thought the tall ones would be too much, but then of course these ones are stacked so full. And I have fairy lights up here which add for a nice background, and my bed ends basically where the bookshelf starts, so every morning I wake up and these are my view. I've kind of divided it into two sections. So here we have the fantasy section, and then over here we have the romance slash literary fiction slash thriller section. Does that make the most sense? Sort of. Is the organization of this a little bit confusing? Yes, but does it make sense to me? Mostly it does. So up top here we have some of my favorite fantasy books. I have the original covers of all of the Throne of Glass books, which is one of my favorite fantasy series. This, which kept falling off of the door, and some special editions with the sprayed edges. I love displaying the sprayed edge books with the edges out. And the cutest little bookmark holder, which holds my numerous bookmarks. I think technically it's supposed to be like a planter for plants, but I got this off of Etsy, and it's inspired by the Queen of Shadows cover. I love it so much. Then this first shelf is mostly young adult fantasy books. I tried to organize it so like moving left to right are books I've read to books that I haven't yet read, but that kind of doesn't end up working all of the time. These generally are series. As you can tell, I've had to stack them on top of each other so I have more room in the shelf. These books, the Entangled with Fae series, I cannot recommend them more. They are standalone, youngish adult fantasy. If you're a fan of The Cruel Prince or A Court of Thorns and Roses, I would definitely recommend those. And there's some science fiction books enmeshed in here as well. Then we have the young adult fantasy hardcovers. Again, the organization system of this, I try to keep series together and authors together, but does that necessarily work all the time? No. And down below, you guessed it, more young adult fantasy books. These tend to be ones that are either standalones or series that I only have like the first book of. There are also a few like young adult contemporary books mixed in here. Moving to the next shelf, more fantasy. Again, I put some of my favorite books on the top here, or ones that just didn't fit down here. All of Carissa Broadbent's books are here. I love her books so much. They are fantasy romances with great world building. Then I have this Fort with Wing art that my boyfriend gave me. It's stunning. And then here is all of the adult fantasy. As you move from the bottom to the top, the fantasy starts to get more and more romantic. Bottom shelves are all fantasy, right? But they tend to focus a lot more on the fantasy aspect than the romance aspect. And then as we move up here, they become much more focused on the romance rather than fantasy. So on this bottom shelf, I like to think of these books that take a little bit more brain power to understand versus like your romance books. Honestly, I've been reading so many contemporary romances lately that I haven't been reading much high fantasy, but I really want to dive more into this shelf. Here's more fantasies. These ones do lean more towards romance, and I have a few sci-fi books here. This is one of my favorite romantic fantasies, A Fate of Wrath and Flame by K.A. Tucker. Also would recommend A Ship of Bones and Teeth. This is like a piratey mermaid romantasy, and even more romantasies. I actually haven't read the Zodiac Academy series yet, but I bought the first 3 books because I've heard amazing things about them, but I'm honestly kind of scared to read these books because they're so long. And then on this side over here are kind of whatever fit right here. Next up is this shelf. I also have a chapter 48 from A Court of Mist and Fury poster, but the top of this shelf has to probably be my favorite decor. We have the All Too Well Taylor Swift notebook, and then we have some Christina Lauren books and Emily Henry books. This is like the viral flower vase that's shaped like a book, but instead of flowers I put confetti that comes with Taylor Swift merch in here. Then we have the Why Choose books, and over here honestly I don't really know what this is. This is just for the aesthetics. We have a few romances, and then I have some UK editions of books that I think are stunning. And we have a folklore cardigan ornament, just a candle, and then The Last Great American Dynasty friendship bracelet. Now we're getting into the romances. This top shelf is all sports romances because I love a good sports romance. And I also have 2 different copies of the Off-Campus series by Al Kennedy, the self-published covers and then the aesthetic covers. Would really recommend this series, the Beyond the Play series by Grace Riley. They're college sports romances, interconnected standalones, so good. And then on this middle shelf here we have dark romance / dark adjacent romance. As you can tell, I really love Sophie Lark's books. They are addicting. I read like 14 of them last year. And on this very bottom shelf we have a few more overflow dark romances, plus this is my thriller section. As you can tell, I also love Frida McFadden. I have like read all of these books by her. Her books are just addicting. And some more thrillers. Finally, up top here we have the stack of Bloom books plus one Olive E. Blake book. Bloom publishes so many romance books, and I thought it would just like look aesthetically pleasing if we have all of the publishers imprints up and down like this. The mini book jars, the books I read in the TBR jar. I really need to update this because I've read so many more books than this that I didn't make mini books for, so I need to update this. Always love the mini books. Some more Taylor Swift decor and some candles. Also right here on the wall I have a bunch of wall art, which I love. I've had this wall art for years by now and I still love it. So this top shelf here is generally romantic comedies. I tried to organize it sort of so the colors look nice next to each other, and I think it's pretty good. And I also tried to organize it by author, so that we have like all of the Lucy Score books here, the Abby Jimenez books, Tessa Bailey. Completely recommend Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. This is one of my favorite books, so good. And then we have more rom-coms. As you can tell, I like a lot of book genres. Some of these aren't rom-coms, but that's just the best place for them. Below on this shelf we have like emotional romances is what I would call these. I don't know how else to explain that, like Me Before You, you know, like tearjerker romances. And here we have some more in-between contemporary romance and dark romance. And finally over here, this is my literary fiction section. It's not very big. I need to read more literary fiction, to be honest. And guess what? I have more bookshelves that aren't technically bookshelves, but they're areas where there are books in my apartment. By my bed right here I have the book cart. This is my TBR cart, sort of, but honestly at this point it just has books that fit in the cart. It doesn't really have an organization system whatsoever, other than I tried to put books that are the same size next to each other. Now let's go into the living room. In the living room, I set up this book cubby. It's right near the entry hallway because I was inevitably running out of space. Honestly, I think this is so cute. It's supposed to be a kid's toy storage cubby, but I used it for books and my CD collection. So here we just have a stack of more books. I made a short form video a while ago that showed me setting this up, and in that video the books were really organized, and here they've kind of gotten out of order. These are the books that I read recently that I haven't like shelved yet properly, so I just put them there. Here we have some romances. Here we have fantasy, adult fantasy. Here we have some books that I want to read really soon, and I tried to make these colors look nice and pretty. There is some more adult fantasy mostly, and these are books that I've been sent as PR. I really like the sort of color coding that's going on in this shelf. And finally my dresser, which of course has more books stacked on top of it. The books on here are mainly ARCs that I got at the Barnes & Noble Book Festival. If you haven't seen my video review on that. I got all of these for free at the festival, which is amazing, and I put them all here so I can admire them here. And I also have some other books stacked up here that I've recently purchased but haven't gotten around to shelving. And that was my bookshelf tour. I hope you enjoyed seeing all of these random stacks of books. They make me so happy to look at. That's it for today's video. Comment down below what book you are currently reading. Subscribe to my channel, give the video a thumbs up, and follow me on Instagram and TikTok and Goodreads for more bookish content, and I'll see you soon. Bye!